Good evening. We are going to call the regular board meeting for the Kiona-Benton School District number 52 to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's two things to note. Board Chair Gina Warner is sick tonight, so Vice Chair Danielle Hart is going to sit in. And Danielle, I know this is not board protocol, however, I would ask if we could have a moment of silence to begin the meeting in remembrance of Arlen, please. Thank you.
All
The
right.
agenda is yours.
Okay, approval of the proposed agenda. Motion to approve the proposed agenda.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? Okay, call to vote. Everyone in favor of approving the proposed agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Decline, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to delegations. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you. We have some sharply dressed folks here in the front row, and Mr. Wilson's here. But I'd like to introduce Mr. Wilson, who's going to introduce our FFA students, and they're going to give us a quick review of the year and the successes that they have had.
Hello, everybody. As you know, I'm Mike Wilson. I would like to introduce our second ag teacher that we've hired this year, Miss Mackenzie Shattuck.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Shattuck. I am super excited to be a part of the KID program now, and I think we have a lot of exciting additions coming this year, so thank you for having me.
These guys put this together for you, so they're going to get up and introduce themselves, and they'll have at it.
My name is Jalen Wilson, and I'm serving as the current president. My name is Ione Wilson, and I'm the current vice president.
My name is Amy Diaz, and I'm the current secretary. My name is Elijah Garwood, I'm the sentinel.
And I'm Charlie Smith, and I am serving as a current treasurer.
So this is our year in review.
Why don't you guys step this way? There we go. Perfect.
So we're just gonna go over some of the events we did this year, like some of our state fairs, our judging events, and of course, state convention.
So we started off the year with our first event, which was Central Washington State Fair, which we went and took multiple students to judge livestock and multiple different types of livestock. And we took first place in Class 1 swine, first place in Class 4 market beef, third place overall team, and fourth place horse evaluation team.
Then we went on to teach Ag Olympics, where ag teachers got the opportunity to teach CDEs and LDEs to FFA students. It was really fun and a great opportunity. We met 3 of our state officers, which is a really big opportunity for us, and we had a barbecue afterwards.
Next we did the holiday hustle. So when you get there, it's hosted at CVC, and you have to come up with a marketing plan to sell potatoes over Christmas time. And so it was a little bit of a struggle because we thought of all the same ideas a lot, but we ended up placing second, and there were a bunch of teams there, so it was really good. I guess we had a good marketing idea.
After that, we went to the District 5 Leadership Conference, where we went there. It was 2 days. The first day we were kind of hanging out, getting to know everybody, and then we had a sit down in their theater room of what we were going to do the next day on how it was going to run. And then the next day we took a bunch of testing, horse evaluation, vet, soil, and agriculture tools, and a bunch of other things. Out of all of that, we placed second in horse evaluation, fourth in vet science, third place in soil evaluation, and third place in ag tools.
After that, we went to the Lower Columbia Basin Jamboree, where we had multiple teams in multiple events, such as ag sales, which we placed third place as a team, and we had the first, second, and third individuals. We also had a first-year team take first place as a team, and we took second place with ag mechanics team, and we participated in multiple other events, and we learned a lot there, had a good time, and we also saw some of our state officers there as well.
Next up, we had district CDs and LDs, which were hosted across a variety of schools. I was lucky enough to participate in most of these, including Ag Sales, which was hosted at Goldendale. We placed first overall team with individuals in the top 3, as well as the 7th and 8th place individuals. This year we sold welders, so that was a bit of a learning curve for me, but in the end, we ended up learning a lot about that. Then, next up, we had employment skills. This is where we created a resume, cover letter, job application, and created the job itself that we wanted to apply for. And we were lucky enough to have myself move on to districts. It was really fun there, and I learned a lot about applying for jobs, and I'm sure our other 2 individuals that competed did too. Then we had our district speaking events. These were extemporaneous public speaking, which me, Paisley, and then Joey competed in. And then we also had Creed speaking, which Ione Wilson competed in. We did very well at districts. We had individuals in the top 8, and then Ione got first at sub-districts. And then from then on, me and Ione went to districts. I placed 6th overall, and I was an alternate for state, and Ione placed 2nd overall, and had the greatest opportunity to go to state. And so we learned a lot about speaking and connecting with other members of people, which we'll use throughout our life in these district CDs and LDs.
And then after that, we went to our Central Washington Junior Livestock Fair, where we have raised animals for quite a while, many months. And we went to a fair and we showed them. We showed for market and showmanship. So for that, Paisley Cindy brought 2 steers. She had 2 highest placing, so first and second. So she did, for market, she got grand champion and revert. Yeah, and then for Ione Wilson and Jalen Wilson, they brought 2 lambs each, and they got blue ribbons for both market and showmanship. And then I brought 2 pigs, and I got 2 blue ribbons for market and showmanship as well.
State is kind of like our big thing every single year. So Jalen talked about all the CDs and LDs that we place to go to state, and that's all we do at state. So in the cooperative quiz, Jalen placed 4th place. She had to do a test and an interview. And then milk quality and products, this was like a 2-hour-long event, and it was a little hard on heels, but we powered through, and we got 15th place, which is really, really good for, this is our, one of our first times doing it at state. First year member, we got 3rd in our flight, so also very good. Creed, 3rd in flight. Ag Sales, they got 16th place. And Peyton Henderson got a state degree. But along with all the competitions, they're so much fun, talking to people and meeting new people. And there's a session at the end where they talk about everything that you did that day, and it's really fun to just be there and soak in all of it. Now, this year we were lucky enough to get a couple grants thanks to the hard work of Mr. Wilson and Ms. Shattuck. And so the few that we got were a chapter grant to go to state convention. It's called the Chapter Connect Grant. And so we will fly to Indianapolis, Indiana this fall, and we have the opportunity to connect with and meet with another chapter from across the country that maybe does things totally different from us. And I'm really excited to meet them and see what we can learn from them and what they can learn from us. Next up, we got our chapter grant to purchase materials needed for our chapter. This will keep us up and going and expanding our opportunities for our members. Then finally, we got a grant by the Pasco Chamber. They are going to help, that money is going to go to our floriculture program, which is new, and I'm really excited to make some plants and have some pretty flowers, and I hope you guys will get some pretty flowers this next year.
Thank you so much for allowing us to show you our year in review, and we hoped you learned a little bit about it, and yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question really quick, just because not everybody knows, what is a CDE and an LDE stand for?
So a CDE stands for a career development event, and these are events that will help you in your future career, like milk quality and products. If you wanted to do something with that industry, that'll help you specifically there. And then leadership development events are events that develop your leadership skills, like public speaking and interpersonal connections. And so employment skills is one of those, and then extemporaneous public speaking, which is my favorite. You talk without a prompt, and it just helps you connect with people around you.
Thank you.
I want to know about your potato, like what did you market?
We did like a competition, and it was like gonna be over social media, and people had to like bring their favorite potato dishes, and so it was supposed to like bring our community together too. And so we thought like people could meet other people and maybe try even more potato dishes, which that was really fun because we talked about lots of potatoes, and I like potatoes. But that's pretty much it. And we had an hour to do the whole thing, and so it was kind of hard to like get past some things because we came up with so many ideas. So.
Applaud you on your dairy science stuff. When I was at WSU, I went to the collegiate dairy products judging contest in Atlanta. 15th is good. I would
Yeah.
appreciate it being 15th.
And horse judging also, not faint of heart. I went to nationals in high school for horse judging. I'm like, oh. But what other projects are you doing going into fair season?
This fair season, I am currently raising 3 lambs and then a breeding heifer for the couple shows that we do throughout the summer.
Awesome.
Do you guys want to tell them what you guys are doing?
I'm raising 2 pigs right now for the Grandview and the Toppenish Fair.
Awesome.
I'm raising 2 sheep, one for the Yakima Valley Fair and Rodeo, and one for the Ben Franklin Fair and Rodeo.
Awesome.
And I'm raising 2 sheep for the Yakima Valley Fair and Rodeo, and then 1 for CBJLS in Connell. So super fun.
I don't show.
She doesn't show. That's okay. It's totally fine.
Totally fine. That's awesome.
How many chapter members do you have?
I believe we currently have around 30.
That's awesome.
Hopefully this next year we can up it to 60.
It's great.
Congratulations.
For sure. Lots of cool stuff.
Well done. Thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank you.
Well done.
Oh, maybe about that stuff.
And I've got one more delegation, please,
Perfect.
if you don't mind. Mr. Castillo, could you step up here, please? Yes, Mr. Castillo, that's you.
Was I supposed to do a report today?
Not quite a report. The district would simply like to recognize Bernardo Castillo. We had a lot of stuff and a lot of transitions going through our graduation, getting prepped, getting fields ready, getting the organization done. We had some employees who wished to recognize Mr. Castillo, so we'd like to hand him this certificate of appreciation for quality work done. Thank you, sir. And we do have another employee we will be recognizing at the next board meeting.
Perfect. All right. Moving on to the proposed consent agenda.
I just have one question on, just for point of emphasis or my knowledge. On 1086, there's like 48 grand for CBC. How often is that, that's for a running start? Is that like 44,000 and 3,000 for VOTEC? And is that tuition reimbursement, or how's that? You're all looking at me like that.
No.
Which one is it on?
1086.
Utilities.
Let me get there.
Page 14 at the top, Columbia Basin College, March 26, RS General, and it's tuition paid to post-secondary schools?
Yes, it's Running Start.
Okay. How often, is that like each quarter, or how often do we pay that, or is that an annual payment, or?
It is on the, this is gonna be confusing. This is on the CBC quarter, which would be if we were on a trimester.
All right, that's the only question I have.
Have a motion to approve the purpose consent agenda. Okay. Second. Tressa seconds. Any discussion other than the question? Okay. Call for a vote to approve the proposed consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Passes. Moving on to public comment, in person or electronic. Do we have any electronic? No. Public comment in person? Do we have any public comment? Okay. I will read. The board welcomes input from the community. Please follow the public comment procedure by stating your name at the podium when recognized by the chair. Each person is allowed 3 minutes to speak. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the board is not allowed to discuss items not on the agenda. The board will direct the superintendent to follow up on any items that arise during public comment as appropriate. The board will not allow complaints against an individual staff member or student in open session unless that individual has requested an open public hearing. No student or employee names can be used.
Cole. This will be very quick. I just want to recognize our state athletes that made it to state track and field. I know I mentioned that there were some going last board meeting. Jeremiah Moore took 7th place in javelin while at states. Elijah Garber, and who's just here. And then her younger sister is a freshman, Keely, who made it. Elijah got 6th place in shot put, and Keely got 8th place in shot put as a freshman. So she actually made it on the podium as a freshman, so really awesome thing to see there. And then Mia Castillo did not place, but it was her first time going to state. And 3 of them, Keely, Elijah, and Mia, they have another year. Some of them have more. So, yeah, I'm excited for next year and looking into that. But yeah, I just wanted to recognize them, and they did really well. They did a great job representing Kaibi while at state. I'm never saying anything.
Yeah, wait.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, we will move this regular board meeting to recess for a public hearing for the 25-26 budget extension general fund. Mr. Hassel.
Thank you very much. So I just want to go over a quick PowerPoint to discuss the budget extension for the 25-26 budget. So the proposed amount that we're asking for is $1,500,000, which would basically make the total allowed expenditures $24,089,509. This additional capacity is basically there to cover any unexpected expenses, as well as a few expected ones that will be coming up. And one thing I do want to call out is that just because we're asking for this amount, we have zero intention on spending that amount. And honestly, I don't think we'll, get close to it. But I would rather have the capacity and not need it than need the capacity and not have it. We're basically asking for this extension due to the unexpected rise in costs, and then also decreased revenue from state and federal programs, in addition to some expenses that increased, which requires additional appropriation. And I got a couple of slides that I just want to touch on. So this first one is basically a chart that breaks down our general fund and the outlook of where we're at. And I want to call out that these numbers are based on month end of April, because as I was putting this together to get all the information out to the public and get it posted in the newspaper, obviously May wasn't anywhere near close to being done. So the original budget was $22,589,509. At the end of April, we had Year-to-date expenses of $15,630,755. The capacity remaining from that is $6,958,755. The encumbered expenses, which are basically expenses that we already have earmarked for certain purposes, most of it is payroll and benefits, as well as some other expenses for, supplies, services, items like that that we know are coming up. That total is $6,712,312, which basically gives us a remaining capacity of $245,236. So what I went and did is actually took all of the total expenditures that we've had through the end of April and basically just divided by 8 so I could get an understanding of what each month's expenditures were. And that averages the $1,953,844. If I take that average times 4 for the next, expenses that we may expect based on, the historical averages for the year, that puts our capacity at negative $611,386, which is why I'm asking for the $1.5 million. Do you have any questions on this slide? Okay. Yes. And so this slide I think is really important, kind of understand how this is going to affect our general fund balance for the end of the year. We're currently sitting at negative $143,511. The additional revenue that we have coming in is $7,613,519. And then those projected expenses that I was talking about earlier total $7,815,376. So if we just take that average and assume that's what we're going to expend over the next 4 months, that's going to put our projected in fund balance at negative $345,368, or negative 1.3% of fund balance. In a hypothetical situation, like I said, I don't think we'll get anywhere near this. But with that same revenue, if we spent the full $1.5 million that I'm asking for, it would leave a fund balance of negative $1,033,332 for a fund balance of negative 4.29. But again, I don't think we'll get close to there. I just want to make sure that we have it if it's needed. And that's basically the way I broke it down to 2 different ways, so you can kind of see where we are with the revenue and the expenses, as well as what it would look like with our expected expenses, and then if we ended up spending the full thing, the full 1.5. Okay. And so what kind of questions might you have?
So this is the first time I've been through this, so what exactly, how does the extension work, or who we requested from the state, or where does the money come from?
So we're requesting it from the board, and it's just the amount that we're allowed to spend. Basically, the money is coming from the treasurer's office. In a normal situation, we have this money in our fund balance, and I'm just saying, hey, if we need to break into this fund balance, can we do this? But because of the financial situation that we are having along with a lot of school districts in the state, we're negative in our fund balance. So essentially, the treasurer's office is helping us out. That's kind of why we've been meeting with them, because they're basically helping us with these expenses until we get our fund balance corrected next fiscal year.
And they're, is this just a formality, the treasurer's office is ready to rubber stamp it if we pass the resolution, or what?
Yes, I mean, that's why we meet with them once a month, so they know where we are as well as where our plans are, both short-term and long-term. Now, obviously, this isn't something that, can continue to go on, which is why we have all these plans in place, to flip the fund balance back into the black and then continue to put money away each year.
Do we, in going to put together a budget, spending it, obviously we're a little short. What is kind of the learning curve from that? My experience has been that the next year you really tapped what you were short on. Mm-hmm. It wasn't usually a situation where the whole budget was short. It was that, well, we didn't anticipate this or this change happened here. And I assume you're kind of gathering that list so that next year when we plan the budget, we'll have that.
Oh, absolutely. One of the lead drivers was our MSOCs, our maintenance costs, our supplies, and everything for our operational costs. rather than cutting programs and cutting personnel last year, we tried to be very aggressive on being able to cut that back. And it just simply didn't materialize. You know, we have to be able to have, you know, fuel for the school buses, we have to, you know, fuel for the heating, we have to have electricity, insurance, things like that. So this year, you know, rather than trying to cut that back, that's why we're kind of looking a little more at personnel. And luckily with, you know, some of the people that we're retiring are maxed out, you know, as far as the pay that's going out. So that's gonna help us immensely. But the big learning curve was basically that, you know, it's MSOC. When I went back and looked at it historically, it usually is right around $4 million. I think last year we had it at 3.6.
I think one of the caveats to make sure and remind the board is this does not eliminate any responsibility on the district's part to bring to the board any large expenditures or any problems that come up. This is not a blank check to go spend. Any significant expenditure is going to come before the board for approval, even with the budget extension, because that's simply best practice.
Our phrase is still going to be no unless it's an absolute need. You know, once or rubber stamp no. So this isn't going to change the emphasis and the philosophy that we've had, you know, for the last several months.
So there aren't any other expenses you could cut between now and the end of the fiscal year?
Not that I've identified.
Still a little confused, because like here it has that this petition the OSPI to increase the appropriation, but we're going through the county, so is this like, does this have to be approved by the OSPI before we could, you know, take a loan from the county?
So basically, it's not so much taking a loan from the county, it's just one of the things that they're our treasurer. So, you know, essentially, they are just allowing us to handle our business as we need to. It's just that regardless of this, you know, even if we had no extension request, we're still in the same situation where we are in the Redmond County. They're just simply working with us to make sure that we're working with them so they can see that we have a plan moving forward.
So it's like advance.
Well, and I guess to try and simplify this to English teacher line of thought, which is what I was, the board authorized the district to spend, what was it, 22.5. So that means that the board, in adopting that budget, put a hard stop at expenditures of 22.5. So this budget extension is then allowing for the expenditure side to increase to the 24,
24, yes.
and is simply the authorization to do so, not having anything to do other than with the authorization that the board is in approval of a revised, for lack of a better term, a revised budget, which we then file with OSPI. They will approve it because it is not an automatic expenditure of funding or anything else. It's simply that the board is aware that it is authorizing expenditures up to this amount, which is why Mr. Hassel, when he says, you know, we asked for the 1.5 million, but we hope not to get close. It's simply, in case something did happen, that we wouldn't have to come back to the board in an emergency meeting and say, okay, now we have this happen and we need more, in order to spend the money we're going to spend anyway. Much easier to do it on the front side of things than to try and reconcile on the back end.
Thank you. What else do I say?
Regarding the budget extension, this is the time, if there's any question from the public, this is an open comment period.
Is there a fee for receiving the advance? Do we have to pay back a?
it's not actually in advance of anything. All the board is doing is saying that there's an authorization to spend money if so needed.
I think she's asking actually, when we borrow from the county, is there a finance fee or some sort of fee when we do that?
Not at the moment, no. The treasurer of Benton County is working with, several districts because, they understand the situation that we're in. But again, that's why we have to convene with them, so we can discuss every month, this is where we are, this is what we're doing, these are our plans.
So you can properly budget, essentially is what you're saying.
Right.
What happens if this doesn't pass and you have to do a meeting each time?
It would just be a lot more labor intensive, and if for something happened, where there was an emergency and we did go over, there's a lot more elaborate processes that we have to go through with OSBI to basically say, we went past our budget and here's all the reasons why. And that's why we do it on the front end, so that way if anything does arise, we don't have to have emergency meetings, and we don't risk the situation where we go over budgets and then have to work backwards with OSBI.
Isaiah had put in a proposal to start a nonprofit so that situations like this wouldn't arise again. Was there any movement towards that? Or not in any way to be like disrespectful, but my son was going to start one either way. So movement or not, it just helps the school not be in the situation again.
If I can keep, the one thing I would say is we have to, because we are in a public hearing regarding a budget extension, we need to keep the topic to that specific topic. I know that Mr. Henry and I have been in contact with Isaiah, and we're happy to continue that.
Are there any other comments from the public regarding the extension?
I'm just curious, Mr. Hassel just said it's because we didn't budget properly. So what kind of checks and balances are there going to be to make sure that going forward that doesn't continue?
So through the historical analysis, basically I've realized that with MSOC, with all those fixed expenses, we're not going to be able to drop it down there. And so that's why we're having discussions about personnel, extracurriculars, other programs, because if we, try to do like we did last year, where we were trying to cut it back on supplies and maintenance expenses, things like that, rather than personnel and programs, we will end up here. So we're not going to do that again for 26, 27. We're going to make sure that that is much more aligned with what we've seen historically, in addition to rising costs. And then we'll look at other places to end up cutting money from the budget, which is not what we did last year.
I think that's a good question in terms of like those that we mentioned, do we know like what's the increase in insurance? What are we using as a fuel multiplier for diesel and all those types of things to Lori's point, how are we forecasting in an unforecastable type of environment?
So thus far, I've added 20% of expected insurance costs to what it was this year. And then for fuel, if I recall correctly, I added 1.3% to what it's costed so far this year. Just because from my research and, being a bit of a nerd when it comes to energy and economics, I don't see diesel fuel coming down anytime in the next year.
Nick, one additional comment?
Yeah, so if we did end up at the negative 1 million, because you ended up having to spend all of this, how eventually do you have to come back to the black and pay that back? Yeah, it's not a loan, but you do have to pay that back. So how would this affect the other budget conversation and potential cuts that have to be made? I'm assuming there was the conversation of needing to cut $2 million for next year, but if more is going to get spent, does that number change?
So basically,
I think we have to remember that this is not an actual expenditure. This is simply the board authorization if the need happens to make the expenditure. The $2 million cuts that the district is going to propose in the 26-27 budget were based upon recommendations from OSPI as well as our county treasurer as being sufficient, if made, at that level, to bring us into the black by the end of the next fiscal year. This again is simply an authorization for an expenditure, not an expenditure.
Hearing no other comments, we'll go ahead and close this hearing and resume our regular board meeting. All right, moving on to director reports and athletics.
Mr. Fleming is not here this evening.
So we'll move on from that.
And Mr. Prego is on vacation. I apologize.
Food service? No? I think we
I
have.
did not see Jenny.
Okay.
We do have a maintenance and operations report, though, that
Yes.
went to everybody.
Yes.
And I hear the door next door.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
The guy who runs the PowerPoint, the TV guy.
I was like, I was watching this. Thank you so much.
All right, so as far as IT, not a lot of moving projects. There's really no new projects. We have a new point of sale, little card readers. We're going to be installing this summer. Nothing crazy, just updating them. So for us, for this summer, we're going from reactive to preventative, which is nice because we're going to be allowed to actually do some maintenance. So just looking at what we're doing, a lot of the stuff is just getting these laptops fixed. We have a lot of broken laptops, so I'll be working with finance to get we're going to do a big repair list, and so the goal is to repair and not replace, because we understand where we're at, and so we want to do our part. Honestly, not too much. We have a lot of lab maintenance and stuff like that. We need to do a lot of blowouts. We're going to fix a lot of screens, a lot of keyboards. Big thing for the high school, we'll be moving our senior laptops that we got. We'll be cleaning those. Mr. Chapman will be cleaning those and making those our freshman laptops. So with that, we want to make sure we give them the best product we can give them with what we have. So a lot of stickers are going to be removed. So
A lot of what?
a lot of stickers.
He said Snickers.
No, stickers are. Yeah, and honestly, just not a lot of moving pieces for us. Moving ahead, just looking ahead, the big thing for us can be this repair parts. That's going to be our big spending piece for the summer. I know we're going to need at least 30 screens, 30 keyboards, and that stuff will start to add up. But other than that, yeah, not too much, to be quite frank. Do you guys have any questions for me? It's a simple preventative PMS summer for us. We're going to make sure everything that was broken over the year gets fixed. So,
What's entailed in this new student interface?
yeah. So Mr. Chapman, our Kobe Chapman, he's our newer guy. He's getting really into group policy, which is kind of our way of customizing the way our student can view and interact with their PCs. One of the big pieces that we're kind of looking at is kind of engaging with the students. So the goal with the elementary school and things like that, we'll be able to change the wallpapers more consistently. We'll change their icons and things like that. So if we're celebrating something, so let's say February is Valentine's Day, we want to put a screen up there and make a little heart emojis and stuff like that, a little heart icons, we can do that stuff like that. So nothing crazy, it's just more customization, just kind of making it more friendly for them. So, any other questions?
This information as soon gets fed into the budget planning to cover what has to be replaced.
I'll be working with John. We've been in talks to figure out where that number is, because as much as I would love 100 screens, I understand we only get 30. So I'll work with Mr. Hassel. So, any questions? All right, thanks, guys.
Moving on to special services
and Mrs. Zaval.
Hello, I've given you the report on the yellow sheet. So for dual language, we completed an interest survey, or I completed the interest survey for our dual language grant. We received, because we had been in the planning stages and now we are in the implementation stage of our dual language program. The state offers a dual language grant that we can apply for every year, and it's between $15,000 and $20,000. And we use that funding to give those dual language teachers additional planning time so they can be working together. This coming year, we'll have the 2 kinder and 2 first grade teachers working on the dual language program. And then we work to purchase the new Spanish curriculum that is needed we'll be purchasing for grade 3. So we purchased 1 classroom set for kinder, first and second through these dual language funding. It's often suggested that we purchase through our bilingual funding, the Spanish curriculum, but we are not allowed to purchase Spanish curriculum with bilingual funding. So bilingual funding is for English language services. So if we hadn't purchased it through dual language grant, it would come through general ed, because those dual language classrooms are general education classrooms. So this gives us opportunity to free some of those general ed curriculum budget dollars because we get this grant. And we're doing it 1 year ahead. Right today and tomorrow, we have Spanish partner teachers are attending a Spanish academy at Grandview today and tomorrow. And this is an opportunity that there was no registration or cost except for the teacher's time for those 2 days that we're paying out of our bilingual grant for them to attend that training in Grandview. And we have a group of our dual language staff and our elementary principal are going to be attending a biliteracy training in Grandview, June 23rd through the 25th. And there was registration cost for that training. But they were hosting it, so it saved us on travel and hotel and those kinds of things, because usually that training's held either on the west side or another state. Our requirement for dual language is to have an advisory board, and it consists of 4 parents and 4 district staff. So we did hold a meeting May 27th to meet that requirement. And when I complete the end of year dual language grant report, I have to send the agenda and the sign-in sheet of those meetings. And then next year, there'll need to be 3 meetings that are planned for with that dual language advisory team meeting. Any questions about dual language? I heard you had a great group of kiddos here a couple board meetings ago. They were really excited. Migrant education. We had a spring resource fair May 7th, and it was held outside at the high school. There were approximately 250 staff, parents, and students that attended that. So it's always a well-attended event. It's something that the district has held. I'd say we've had it 3 years in a row. The second bullet is I'm working to coordinate. Each year we're required to have migrant training for all of the district staff. We've been hosting it during our all-district staff meeting the first day that everyone comes back in August. And our ESD 123 staff come and provide that training. It's about an hour. Everybody signs in, and so we have documentation that we've completed that for our district. There's migrant education staff training in August, the 12th through the 14th, and we've registered our staff that are paid out of migrant education. And there's no cost to that training. The cost is the transportation to get there. It's in Yakima. And then paying for them to attend because it's a non-school day. For the summer, we have 6 students attending a science camp at Bainbridge Island, June 22nd to the 26th. And we have 2 district chaperones attend with the students. These are middle school students. We've done this probably about the last 6 years, and we take a new group of kids every summer. And it's just a really great event. They have students from the University of Washington who are working on their teaching science degree, and they are the ones that kind of lead the activities for that camp. We have 30 middle school students attending a STEM day camp, June 15th through the 26th, and 7 high school students are attending a health academy, July 13th through the 17th. These camps are held at the CBC campuses in Richland. We facilitate all the registration because we need parents' permission and coordinate the pickup. But the ESD Migrant Education Program pays and coordinates all of those activities for the students. And they also provide the transportation for those activities. And then one thing I didn't add is that we are having our PASS migrant credit retrieval program. We've had that for several years, providing our migrant students opportunity for credit retrieval. It's a 5-week program starting June 15th. So under multilingual education or bilingual education, we access tested. That's a state required test for English language development for all our students that qualify. And we have 340 students in our bilingual or multi-education program that were tested kindergarten through grade 12. So once students qualify, they're required to be tested every year until they exit. And we have received our testing results, and we did exit 12 students this year from the program. Another requirement is that those score reports that come from the test be provided to parents, and we have sent those out. The majority of them we sent home with students, but we also, through Parent Square, sent them a notification that these were coming home with their students. And because of the timing and many activities happening at the high school, we mailed the high school letter, parent letters home. These reports also were required to file in the student's cumulative file. And then our administrators utilize these scores to place students for the coming school year for their services, to ensure they get bilingual services. The multilingual program, I know I've shared this with you before, is a push-in. So we either have teachers who have their ELL endorsements or GLAD training, providing services. Some we do provide push-in services with a paraeducator or our ELL specialist. And we did get 3 more teachers, elementary teachers, certified in GLAD, which is instructional strategies to utilize in the classroom. We had a 1st grade teacher, a 3rd grade teacher, and 5th grade teacher complete their certification in May. And Findlay School District was the district that provided the training. So for special education, we've been working on transition, ensuring that our counselors and our principals know and understand what students are coming up to that next building, and if there's any special accommodations that are required for those students. One thing that I did not include in your handout was that this year was the first year OSPI required special education programs in districts to send out a parent survey to all of our parents who have students with special education needs. And there was a timeline, we sent it out, and then the end, I think, was May 15th. And we, our percentage was 28%. We had 28% of our parents respond to the survey. It was a link specific to CIB. And we should be getting those results and be able to report that out to you next year in September when we get the results of that. And then we do have one special education opening at the elementary for one of our resource rooms. And then for me, between now and the end of the year, I'm just working to complete the end of year program reports for these programs. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lot of stuff going on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to unfinished business, the financial update, Mr. Hassel.
Oh, thank you very much. So not too much has changed since our last meeting. Cash flow continues to be an issue, but we're still staying right about where we thought we would be as far as a projected ending balance, which is, like I said, really impressive because of all the rising costs, especially in diesel and supplies. And then, we went over the budget extension earlier. Assuming it is approved, we will submit everything to the ESD and OSBI, which will kick off binding conditions like we've spoken about before. While this does give us, some oversight from the state, from the ESD, the most important thing to remember about that is it allows us some freedom to do things within all of our funds, especially the general fund, obviously. So once we get into these conditions, we start looking at selling off some of the assets like we discussed. That money goes to the general fund, not to capital projects. It also allows us to move some funds within our funds, like transportation, things along those lines, into the general fund, which will also help get that fund balance back into a positive number that we were discussing earlier. The budget process is continuing. We talked about that just briefly earlier. The only thing we're really going to be doing now is finalizing some of the things we've been discussing with the board, and then also some of the personnel items. But it's moving along splendidly, and I'll be prepared to give a full presentation on the 22nd over where we are with the budget, kind of like a first presentation of what we're thinking. The only thing is I will be doing it remotely because I have to go to a wedding in Texas. But I will have it prepared, and I will be there to present that to you. What's that?
That's the unexpected.
It's my sister's wedding, so I can't all be happy about it. No, I'm just kidding.
She would be watching right now.
Oh, if she's watching, she would have said nothing less.
That's hilarious.
It's little sister, it's okay. But I will be having that presentation there. Like I said, everything's moved along. It's just some of these final things that we're discussing. And I think that when I give the presentation, I think it'll give everybody a better understanding of everything that we've been working towards over the last couple of weeks, last couple of months.
Can you remind me, when does the Stellar Academy, when do they start paying us? Or they already started paying us?
No, we're still in the process of enrollment and all of that type of stuff. So they will start their first year September 1st, the same as us for the next school year. So we'll begin collecting during the 26-27 school year.
So is that is it an 8-month contract, or is it like 20 grand a month, or what is it that they, because it was
$160,000. No, and quite frankly, the terms as far as how often or anything like that aren't set in stone. Kittitas, for instance, elected to take it in one lump sum, so they got a check for $160,000. I plan on working with John to see where, there are months during the calendar year, the school year, where our apportionment dips, and it may make sense to have half of it take place in November and the other half in April, to try and offset some of that.
So that's a 4-year program, or contract, like?
It's a 5-year contract,
Okay.
with the $160,000 being paid the first 3 years, and then following that, we go to a percentage of the overall cost of the program. So what we hope to see by that time is that we're actually seeing an increase in revenue to the district as more and more kids are enrolled. Right now, even without a formal code from the state, they've pre-enrolled already 40 kids statewide into the high school program. And as I told the board when we were first discussing this, many of these kids have already been associated with Stellar Virtual through the Kittitas School District, but their program ends at 8th grade. So some of those are simply going to roll from being students that are enrolled in Kittitas through Stellar to kids enrolled in Benton City through Stellar.
Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to student board representative update, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. So as I have talked with a lot of different school districts and superintendents, I really felt it was important for us to go back to what the board tends to focus most of its attention on and really what you base so many decisions moving forward on, and that's our board policy. Now, the board does not currently have a policy on students on the school board. So what I've enclosed is the WASDA model policy for students on governing boards. And the reason that I did this is not only because it's a board policy and that's your venue, but also because as you read this, it's a very short policy, 2 paragraphs, but it has so many of the variables that at various times we've talked about. This was originally passed in 2011. So you can see even from the state level that student members on boards are, while they're not a totally new thing, it's not something that has been widespread. But as you look at the policy itself, and this is not a formal first reading, this is simply to give the board an idea of what a policy could look like, but then change to fit our district. With this particular policy, it says the district will annually seat 2 student representatives. Well, one of the things that we will need to consider is, so we really don't, in my opinion, and this is why it's here for discussion, if you have 2 student representatives each year, you don't get the benefit of a student who learns the system of being a student representative of the board, because as soon as they get it down pat, then they move on. A majority of the local models that we have, that I've explored, involve 2-year terms for either one student or multiple students. The advantage in my mind of having 2 students is that ideally, if this was springtime, we would be talking to a sophomore who would be looking at going and completing a 2-year term, and you would hopefully have a junior going into their senior year for a 2nd-year term. And so you have a nice learning curve where one student learns the process and is then there to help guide the next student, who then returns the favor the next year. I don't know that there is a ton of value other than the conversation of having a constantly recurring or re-elected student every year. I think that loses some of the value that you gain with experience. I think many leadership experiences, in fact, I think if you talk to many of our leadership students, they start in leadership as freshman or sophomore, and they're in it for the three years, and by gosh, when they're seniors is when they're the most valuable because they've seen so many different things, and they take mentoring roles for the kids that are coming up. So I think the first decision is, what type of a term do we want to see, a 1-year versus a 2-year? We need to have some form of regular communication with other students. So hopefully we're getting a kid who is going to be involved in other activities besides just being on or a student representative to the board. Hopefully someone who's also in a leadership class, someone who's in FFA or clubs or activities or something where there are other peer groups that they can draw from. Then you see that the student representatives, they're expected to be at all board meetings. An advantage to having, quite frankly, two representatives, especially in a school our size, and this was reiterated to me from other schools our size, is as you get active students, they're not just active with being on the board, they're active in other things too. So you get a great track athlete who during spring, they aren't going to be at as many board meetings, which leaves a second student representative the opportunity to take a more centralized role. If you get an ASB president who also happens to be the quarterback on the football team, you know they may not be on time for the fall meetings, but come winter, they're going to be there consistently. I think as I'm aware, as every board member is aware, sometimes life happens. And so I don't want to punish a kid by mandating you shall be here for every single meeting when we know that some of our most active leadership kids are active in everything. And I think that's a value in a board representative more than it's a hindrance. So again, my purpose with this was simply to give you some ideas, because this really does have a foundational effect, and you can look at it and say, okay, if this was one term and we had one student, would it be 2 terms of one student? I think there are ways you can manipulate this. I do not think we are in a position where we need more than 2 though, by any stretch. I think that would be doing a disservice. And quite frankly, if we were to be considering having a yearly roll of kids, meaning every year they're brought in as a board rep, I almost think there may be ways that we could achieve the same ends without actually putting a student on the board if we're simply going to roll them each year. I think the one question I have, and there really were only 2 models with this particular, is there were some districts of all sizes who made the board representative a part of another leadership opportunity, meaning the ASB president in some districts is considered the board representative for that year, and then is an automatic placement up as the student rep to the board. That's one of those 1-year recurring things. So that's, quite frankly, the only time it makes sense to me to be able to do that is if we wanted to say, okay, the ASB president and vice president shall be serving as the 2 representatives to the board. I'm not keen on that personally. I don't necessarily see them as necessarily hand in hand, meaning just because you enjoy the student leadership side and you want to plan dances and you want to plan fundraisers and things like that, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to enjoy coming here and sitting with us twice a month. So I would be inclined to see them, to keep them separate, but those really are the only 2. We either have the 2-year model like I was talking about, or if you do the 1-year model, it's often tied to that ASB election. However, I do have samples of interview questions, of written applications, of points of emphasis. I've really got it. That is almost immaterial as to once the board can decide what you would like this policy to look like, we will put it in place, make it a first reading, and then move forward. I think the one thing that, as we have talked about this over the years, somehow it always comes up this time of year, and realistically, this is something we should do in the springtime. We should set the application process and get the announcements made February, with then at least a solid month to accept the applications, another month to do the interviews and things like that. So then by this time, 1st of June, we're ready to name next year's representatives.
See, I disagree with that.
Okay.
I think that it would be better off to approach it almost like the general election. And I would say, year one, you have a senior that serves a 1-year term, and a junior that serves a 2-year term, and then you go back to you've always got one, just like on the board. Not both of them are leaving the board at the same time. And I think as part of this, it becomes a learning experience around community service and volunteerism and all those types of things, that if they seat in December like we do, or January, then it just continues and people understand kind of the legislative, the election process, and becomes kind of a teaching moment, along the way. So to me, that makes more sense. It gives, Mr. Henry and the team at the high school, September, October, to get kids lined up and who's interested. And I'm not in favor of saying that there's any, the ASB president is guaranteed the spot. I think I agree with your point there, that I think until we open it up for kids, we don't know where those kids, like, how many Isaiahs are there, that are gonna come up and, have a passion for, speaking up for their fellow students and that type of thing. So, to me, I think we, open it to, again, sophomores in that, or, stop juniors to be a senior and then go from there. So that would be and I would be, I think we should move it forward and customize it for Coyote and then get a reading on it.
I really like that. I didn't think about it that way, but I like the 2-year with a junior and a senior. So the very first year would be a senior that has 1 year, and then every kid thereafter would have a 2-year, junior and senior year. But I didn't think about it doing it with the general election, or the November election cycle, because as a senior, well, most seniors or juniors do state government, so you learn about that in government. And learn about that whole entire process. I think that would be a phenomenal way to integrate that into our student culture. It just as a civic duty, right? To get out there and advocate and be vocal and understand what's going on in your community, understand what's going on in your school. I think that's awesome. I really like that idea. But the 2 students for sure in a 2-year. I don't think a 1-year would. We don't have enough time to learn in a year, and we're living it. With all the things that our kids have going on, I think it would be a disservice. I think that they would not have enough time to soak it in, which kind of, for me, I feel a little for that one senior that starts it off, but I think they will need 2 years to really understand how it all plays out.
Mike, I have to give you credit. That's an option that not one of the 23 superintendents in the region came up with.
Every squirrel finds a nut.
So, from what I hear, I'm going to work on a rough draft. The other one was just not even a rough draft; it was just a thing. Working with 2 students, 2-year terms, some time frames, trying to incorporate some of the ideas that Mike had. Work with Mr. Henry and see what his time frames might work for them. I don't want to get. I would love to have a senior ready to go I don't know if we want to wait till January of their senior year, the first year,
For first year.
but, Dan?
I like the idea and that type of thing. I like the idea of pretty good tests in the first 2 years to see exactly what the effect is, not only on the rest of the students, because I assume they're going to get some feedback,
Hope so.
but also kind of, how that affects the populace of the school. And the other thing is I think what is the effect on that student? Because their job is to go to school and learn, and you don't want to get a really good student tied up in a full-time teaching job type of thing, at least at that age. So I really like the idea. I think though it's got to have some pretty good looking as to what is achievable and that type of thing.
Any other discussion? Sounds like Mr. Peter has some work to do.
Oh, we're on a draft.
All right. So the next topic is the middle school and high school athletics update, also Mr. Peterson.
Well, I'm going to turn this over fairly quickly to Mr. Hassel. I know the board had asked for a significant amount of information, and you received a significant amount of information. And I will ask Mr. Hassel to give you kind of a breakdown of what he's given the board so we can take a look at it. And I would just say that while there is, this does not need to feel exclusionary, but I'm hoping that we can come to a consensus on at least one item tonight. And you'll see later on in the agenda, we have two different WIA resolutions that we need to process if we're to move forward with athletics. And so depending on the outcome of that vote will be obviously dependent on how we move forward. But Mr. Hassel, if you'd like to explain, and obviously if there were any questions that Mr. Hassel hasn't been able to address, please, this is the opportunity.
So I'll preface this that I will admit that sometimes I can get a little over analytical when I'm putting things like this together, so feel free to ask questions. So the first one is varsity versus JV costs. The biggest thing you're going to note is that for JV costs, all we pretty much see is payroll type stuff, pay, benefits, payroll taxes, and then the officials. It's because a lot of the stuff, supplies, things along those lines are already fixed. So if we have to paint the lines for varsity, obviously JV's going to be using it as well. So I left those off. These are just for 25-26. My thought is if we were looking at this 26-27, if all the costs remain the same, it would probably be looking more about $210,000 for varsity and about $20,000 for JV. And that's just because if it's ongoing, then we're gonna have to buy some new uniforms, have things repaired, et cetera, et cetera. But this is just as it is for 25-26.
Okay.
Do you have any questions on this one?
What is like, so there's, what is miscellaneous travel if we aren't taking our kids anywhere?
That was for like state championships and things along those lines.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yes, ma'am. And so another thing the board had asked for is for non-sport advisors. So basically what I went through and did is took all the pay that we, all the expenses that we have in regards to our advisors and just put totals in there so you can see how much each advisor for each of these groups costs. And it's pretty much straightforward. There's not a lot of changes to it. It's just basically our cost for that advisor. Any questions on that one?
The one thing I would like to throw in there, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
The non-sport advisors, we classify those as co-curricular. These are not extracurricular. And there are probably people in the room that are going, well, what the heck is the difference? Well, if you look at those items, these are co-curricular, where these are all tied to an in-class or in-school experience, meaning our middle school CAVE advisor is developing the middle school CAVE program and working with the rest of the teachers around that. Same with leadership, pep band, high school annual, those. So these are all things that exist within some other type of curricular goings on in the school. Whereas a sporting event, obviously, you can have a lot of people sponsoring a sporting event besides a school, but you don't see a high school annual out there just willy-nilly. So that it's an important distinction to make, because these also, as co-curricular, these are only filled by our teaching staff. These are not filled by a coach, for instance, can come from our community, can come from outside the community, quite frankly, but the co-curricular, the non-sport advisors, those are our people, teachers, and I can think of only a couple of cases where we've advertised for one of these positions, we were not able to fill it with a teacher, and then we went ahead and worked with our bargaining units to say it's okay if someone from outside the bargaining unit takes that role for a year.
I do have a really quick question. I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back to the JV versus the varsity really quick.
Okay.
So, Mr. Hessel, so would, like, supplies, et cetera, if we, for example, did not have, like, JV athletics, would the supplies actually remain the same with not having the same number of athletes and not needing the same number of supplies?
I honestly think it'd be immaterial, just because a lot of the same supplies we need, like, painting the fields, resurfacing, things along those lines are still gonna be there.
Okay.
The biggest thing I think is going to be refurbishing, helmets, things along those lines for the next year. Making sure that we have, uniforms that are good for JV next year, things along those lines. But I honestly think even if, we calculate that in, rather than 213 versus 17, we're looking closer to, 210 versus 20, or 205 versus 25. I don't think it would be too much of a difference.
Well, I mean, we're talking pennies here, but we need pennies
In the
right
grand-
now, so.
In the grand scheme of things, correct, but,
Yeah, I was just curious. Thank you.
I have a question. We're, for, like, when we have the door fee, what it kind of costs to come in for football, for a game, where do all those funds go? Isn't that part of our revenue, so doesn't that kind of take some of these fees, doesn't it?
It goes to the ASB, basically on the ASB slide, I can kind of speak to that a little bit more.
Okay.
Good question.
Go to the next slide. There we go. So basically, this is where I broke down the athletic costs versus levy, non-levy, and ASB. And since you had asked about ASB, basically what's happening with door money, concession money, things along those lines, that's coming in, but then it's also going back out to help offset some of these costs. So when you're looking at ASB and you're looking at the expenses in there, it's not so much that ASB is coming in and supplementing it, it's that they're earning that revenue and then turning around and making those expenditures out of those same accounts.
So it's through money.
Correct, basically, it's almost like a wash, yes, ma'am. And so then the rest is the levy versus the non-levy, the 281,000 versus the 8,000. And so basically, just like I kind of did before, I broke it all down, pay, benefits, taxes, officials, all the way down the line. So you'll see the levy, if we take out all of the ASB funds, you're looking at 290 versus 281. So the levy covers 281,000 and change, whereas non-levy covers $8,000 and change. So most of our athletics has been paid for by the levy funds historically.
The other consideration to take into account is, because we're looking at 25, 26 expenditures, athletic travel is not included in that. That would be another a significant levy cost. Prior to this year, we had estimated travel for the 25-26 school year to be at $90,000. had that existed, I guarantee we would have been closer to the $115,000 range with the rise of diesel costs. So you know, you're looking at another 25-30% increase on top of that for travel piece.
And that's just travel to and from games, it's not the miscellaneous travel that we talked about earlier.
Yep.
Right.
Do you have any questions on that one?
If you could take a look at the coaches, and I think this is where some of the board's questions were, I know Mike had commented on the number of coaches that we had, and you probably are thinking, gosh, I thought we saw a heck of a lot more football coaches. Well, what these are the minimum number of coaches per sport according to the collective bargaining agreement. But with football and with other sports, what you have is the opportunity, for instance, we had 3 assistant football coaches who all agreed to take half of their contract in order to pay 3 more. So those are 4 full-time people, but we actually had 7 full-time coaches, it's just they were paid half of what the bargaining agreement says. So when you, and I appreciate John clarifying this, because when you looked at that other one, you'd see 7 coaches at 0.5. Well, what the heck, you can't have half a coach. It's the salary that's half, they're working the same amount. And the same has happened in other sports.
The job sharing.
Job sharing is a great term.
So that one, for this year, the only, is it correct that on the high school side of it, the only coaches that weren't part of that was tennis?
Yeah, we didn't have tennis
We
coaches.
didn't have tennis.
Yep. This is another reason, though, and I want to make sure, this is one of the reasons why you don't see as high an impact with JV costs. You would think, wait a minute, why wouldn't cutting JV have a higher impact? Well, it's because you don't want to, for the most part, you want 2 coaches at every practice or anything, because in the case of an emergency, one coach has to leave, you have another coach who can supervise. If you have an injury, then, you know, one coach goes with the athlete while the other coach gets the rest of the kids home. So it's until you start actually cutting the number of coaches that then you would start seeing a higher impact.
Any other questions on that? So we have one at ASB. So the board had asked for, basically ASB, anything associated with athletics. And so basically what I took is their beginning balance for the year, any revenue, any expenses, any current encumbrances, which is just money earmarked that we know is going to be coming out of there, and then the in balance. And so basically, I took everything that is actually sport related, basketball, football, softball, etc., and then the administrative, general ASB, and then other items like the class of, who are actually working gates and concessions and getting that money that's coming in and then going right back out. But those are included because they're doing that stuff up in the stands, and then these other groups are the actual ASB athletic accounts.
And so is the tennis just going to be absorbed into the main ASB account? Or is it just going to sit there in case we have tennis again?
The tennis club account would stay put until, because there will have a tennis team.
Hopefully.
Well,
hopefully again someday.
maybe you can play coach tennis. But yeah, it'll sit there just
Okay.
very much like
Just wanna make
the
sure.
fact that you could probably go back and still find an ASB account for the class of 1987 because they just didn't spend all their money.
Give their money or anything.
You know, and then it just sits there.
Okay, and then one other question that I have, we had a discussion last meeting about some things around pay to play. So what are the current fees, or are there no current fees, other than maybe an ASB fee?
ASB fee is all.
Okay.
And again, right now, I can find no, other than an ASB fee, there is no pay-to-play model that I've been able to locate on this side of the state, short of a private school. But as far as a public school goes, I can't find one.
Well, then I'm asking, because like in the larger schools, like you have your ASB fee, but you also have a per sport fee. So that helps recoup some of the costs of reconditioning helmets, etc. So that's why I was asking about that. So I do know that for students who qualify, and I know that we have several students that qualify for free and reduced, or the district does essentially. But if you do have that, you can do the paperwork to be reimbursed by WAA. So like, that's why I'm asking about it. Not because I want our parents or anything to pay more, but if we're looking at, as a parent, I would pay $55 for my child to play if I could, and had the ability to help recoup some of those costs regarding refurbishing football helmets, because that's important, right? You have to do that, it's a state mandate. But rather than losing a part or all of the sport.
So, Mr. Peterson, you're saying that nobody on the east side of the state in any district charges?
I'm sorry, our size.
Our size,
I was like,
Yeah. And I know you're gonna, it sounds funny to say this, but some of the districts that are in the least financial issues have some of the highest charges. It's odd, but for the, you know.
I mean, it would be just something, that's what I'm like.
yeah, I think it's more about the visibility, or the, face value of it. I mean, I'd be like, whether it's 55 or whatever it is, and then it's capped at, say, you played 3 sports, you pay $100 a quarter or something like that, that type of thing. Again, I think it just is kind of a, look, we're all in this together type of thing, and certainly have some boundaries around, whether it's free and, free lunch program, that type of thing, that don't have to pay without embarrassing people about the whole process too, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then this last one is basically just the middle school sports cost breakdown. I altered it just a little bit, where the high school varsity versus JV, I kept a lot of, the supplies and things along those lines, mostly with varsity. This I felt it was a little more accurate if you spread it across. But if you look, 8th grade costs is totaling about $82,000, and then 7th grade is about $17,000. We didn't have many teams that actually many sports that had 2 teams. So basically that was kind of factored into it as well. I made sure that anything that only had 1 team was only in the 8th grade, and had the 2 teams that it went to the 7th grade, to 7th grade as well. And if you're wondering about the ones with 2 teams, it's volleyball, boys basketball, girls basketball.
What happens to, you mentioned the class of 1987, but, so like, 2026 class doesn't spend all their money, do they like will it to the class of 2030, or, what happens with those funds?
They gift it?
Gift it.
Clay?
They make a ASB write-up on who they're gonna give it to. It could be the class of 2027, 2028.
Okay.
They can leave it, and then they make the next school year can choose to roll that up, but it is through an ASB process.
Okay.
And they can also gift that as well. Is that correct?
Sure, it's
Right.
never happened since I've been here.
When I say gift, so for example, like they can do a class gift to
Yeah.
the school or
Right.
the district, yeah.
Yeah, we usually do that. I mean, as far as a gift for the school, they just have money left over that they usually roll up to the
Gotcha.
incoming senior class.
That's generous.
One of the things, maybe we're gonna get to that or whatever, but I'd like to, whether it's the next meeting or something like that, have some of these coaches, come and, at least give their thoughts to the board or at the next budget workshop, have the coaches so we could hear, what are their ideas, what are their thoughts around this whole thing, what's their thinking on pay to play, all that type of stuff, and maybe it's more appropriate at the next budget workshop, but rather than at a board meeting where we can't really have an interaction with them, but
And maybe find out if that's something the parents are even interested in or wanting
Booster
to do.
Club, same thing. I know at least the football team, I'm sure there's more that are selling the $25 cards right now, so.
Nobody's asking.
You got my cell phone, so I've got 15 texts.
Nobody's asking. I haven't. I put that on an open meeting. That's all good. It's all good. Yeah, I agree with that. I would like to hear from the parents and the kids too, and the coaches, parents, kids, and coaches, because that's who it impacts, right? Is those folks, and so either at the budget workshop or even our next board meeting. We have public comment for a reason.
Well, we have, one of the, we have the board workshop date selection, which is our next agenda item. We can work, I can work with Cole and Mr. Fleming to make a request to have coaches come to that workshop. I know that the board is very torn with this issue, yet very supportive of athletics, and will not make a decision lightly. So when the time comes, while the time for discussion of the budget extension occurred during the public hearing, I would like to give some thoughts to the WIAA resolution that we're going to be asking for and let you know why I'm going to make a recommendation that I'd like to make, and I'd love your input on that, because obviously you're going to vote on it 30 seconds later. So, Dan?
I think that's a real good idea, and I think the only thing one wants to be, because I've seen this happen, one wants to be cautious of that the presentation of the concept is in total, as opposed to abbreviated or maybe not totally covered, and that will allow a community to feel like there's really a drastic miss or something there, and you actually can inherit more problems. I think going to the public for our approval and getting their input is outstanding. It's got to be balanced.
All right. If there's no more discussion, our next.
Oh, sorry, Celia.
Our next topic is the board work session. So
I heard back. I had sent some suggestions to the board. I'm gonna go with the fact that we have we have next Wednesday, the 17th, and next Thursday, the 18th, as our top two choices. Both being at 6:30, unless there's another idea that has come up since the last meeting. Two things to consider. First off, There are a number of community church events that usually happen on Wednesday evenings. I don't know how much that would impact a 6:30 event by the board, but I wanted to put that out there, that sometimes, I know when our schools are considering things, we often try and stay away from Wednesdays as the only opportunity, because there are a lot of things going on Wednesdays. Thursday night is completely open from the board standpoint. And this should not factor in your decision, but I will be at the WASA, the Superintendent's Association Regional ESD 123 Community Awards event that night. We'll be having one of our community members receiving an award, as we do each year. For whatever reason, they moved it to the middle of June, and that's the date they chose. Please understand, that does not preclude a board workshop or community information session from happening. It just means that I won't be here. I have great faith in all of your abilities to take care of that, trust me. But I wanted to make you all aware of that up front. So it is the one ESD WASA event of the year that, quite frankly, is not something we can miss, because we're awarding on one of our own. So either one of those two dates, I think of the two, I would lean towards me being the one impacted versus the community. I
agree.
I don't have a problem with that.
I agree with that too. Do you need a motion, or we just?
No,
Sounds like Thursday the 18th.
I will take you all at your word, and we'll say Thursday the 18th at 6:30 is going to be it.
Do you think there's going to be enough room
You'll
here?
communicate that, or do we need to move it elsewhere so we have enough room?
During the previous two, we've been easily able to accommodate in this room.
Start here and then move if needed.
If needed. But this is about the number of people that we've had at the community events, so I think we would be well served. I can tell you we know the AC works in here well too.
Easier to hear people in here.
Quite frankly, I mean, you sit in a pack, even those decent chairs, I mean, these are a little more comfortable here. But that's
We'll have one more chair, because you won't be here.
exactly. Exactly. Okay.
So
June 18th it is.
6:30, right?
June 18th, 6:30. We will get that on social media and our website.
Awesome. All right, moving on to new business and resolution 3-2026 WIAA for approval.
Thank you very much. And I think I've spoken to this. This is an annual resolution that we have to pass in order to participate in athletics for the following school year. There are two resolutions that were put in your board packet, one for high school only, one for high school and middle school. It is my recommendation at this point in time, because the board has not yet reached a conclusion on the budget, that we go ahead and approve the WIAA resolution, which includes both high school and middle school athletics. It would not preclude limiting of those athletics, meaning the number of teams at each site, but this way, at least it is letting the leagues and the state know that it's our intent to compete in one fashion or another. Even if it wasn't in a full slate of sports, we could still know that we'd be covered by the WIA regardless of the number of teams. I would defer to Acting Chair Harvey to go ahead and request that when you would like.
Sure. I would like to get a motion to approve resolution 026 WIA.
Second.
He's gonna second, okay.
Moved
So-
by Dan,
Seconded by Mike. Okay. Voting for resolution 3026 WIA approval is done by roll call. I'll start with myself, Danielle Harvey, aye. Tressa Watts, Dan Rapp,
Aye.
Mike Peterson.
Aye.
Resolution passes. All right, moving on to resolution 4206 2526 budget extension general fund for approval. John Hassel.
Thank you. So I've gone through the numbers to let you know exactly where we are with what we spent during the year, what we have encumbered, and our planned expenses. So I would ask the board to approve the extension. Again, not as something that we intend to spend all of it, but it is something that will allow us to spend if we need to. Our standard operating procedure will be no unless it is absolutely needed, once they're not going to be purchased. So I would ask you that you approve the budget extension for $1.5 million.
I'd like to entertain a motion for resolution 4026.
So moved.
Mike. Moved, Dan Rapp seconded. Approval of resolution 4026 voting is done by roll call. Start with myself, Danielle Harvey, aye. Trustee? Aye. Dan Rapp?
Aye.
Mike Peterson?
Aye.
Resolution passes. Moving right along, board comments. I will start. I just want to say it's been a wild couple months, and I think that Tressa and Mike probably might say the same thing for us. We've had some major amazing things with our kids this year, despite some recent events which are tragic. But our kids are doing great and amazing things. So the parents and the staff and stuff in this room and online, I commend you. Your children are amazing. The staff are amazing. We're so very fortunate. Even though we are stuck in a budget nightmare. Yes, that's actually a really good term. Budget nightmare. And the saxophone keeps getting louder if you're a TikTok person. Anyways, but with that being said, it's a privilege for us to be here and serve our community. And even though we have to make some hard decisions coming up here soon, I look forward to working with everyone continually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad Bernardo got commendation for high school graduation. Was awesome. The organization, the speeches, and the original music that was presented, I thought it was just a great example of the kids. And then go to middle school graduation of Mr. Davidson, and trying to corral 8th graders, and keep everybody, but the parents and families, the bleachers were packed in both events, and it's fun to see the best things about the district, and because this can be a real negative type of process that we're going through right now. So appreciate you all.
I was really impressed that he tried to get the 8th graders to roar. I just said, that's awesome. That was so awesome. Anyway, so if you have an 8th grader, or an 8th grader, that was awesome. So, anything else? Any additional comments? With there being none, we'll move to executive session pursuant of RCW 4230-110, sections 1G, performance of a public employee for 30 minutes with no business to follow. We are adjourned at 8:14.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night. See you on the 8th.